The final battle came at the first light of the three suns. Dark ships filled the horizon, and the shadows of the void stretched over the kingdom. Lyra stood at the edge of the palace walls, with Mira perched on her shoulder. The princess had faced many threats before, but this one was the greatest she had ever known. The human warrior Ryan stood beside her, calm and ready, his simple sword in hand. He had no grand armor or magic, but his presence was a force that inspired all who saw him. The palace guards lined up behind them, their fear replaced with determination as they followed Ryan's lead. Civilians moved to safe areas guided by the princess's magic and the steady hands of the human warrior. Mira roared, spreading her wings wide, her small fire glowing as a warning to the approaching enemy. The dark ships began to fire beams that tore through the palace walls and towers. Lyra moved swiftly, her magic forming shields to protect the soldiers and civilians. Ryan moved among the guards, guiding them, protecting the weak, and striking when necessary. He blocked attacks from creatures that had climbed onto the walls and helped injured soldiers to safety. Lyra watched him, feeling admiration grow in her chest. She had mocked him once for being human and weak, but now she understood that his courage and focus were stronger than any magic she possessed. Mira flew above the battlefield, striking at enemies with fire and guiding her allies from the sky. The dragon's movements were swift and precise, adding strength to their side. As the battle raged, the enemy landed massive void beasts on the palace grounds. Many guards fled, but Ryan remained calm, his focus unbroken. He moved through the chaos, protecting civilians and guiding the soldiers who had returned to fight. Lyra followed him closely, using her magic to reinforce the defenses and shield the innocent. The princess saw the human move with precision and courage that inspired others. Soldiers who had been paralyzed by fear now stood firm, following his lead. Civilians moved quickly to safe zones, guided by Ryan's quiet strength and Lyra's protective magic. Mira circled above, her glowing wings a beacon of hope in the smoke-filled sky. Hours passed, and the battle showed no sign of ending. Lyra and Ryan worked side by side, coordinating soldiers, guiding civilians, and using every tool at their disposal. The human warrior did not shout or demand attention, but his presence alone gave confidence and order. Lyra realized that the strength of a person was not measured in titles or magic, but in courage, patience, and the ability to stay calm in the face of danger. Mira continued to strike the enemy from above, keeping the beasts off balance and protecting those below. Lyra felt a bond with Ryan, growing stronger with every passing moment. She had once mocked him, and now she relied on his strength as much as he relied on her magic. As the sun moved higher in the sky, the dark ships began to falter. The defenders of the palace held strong, and the combined efforts of Lyra, Ryan, and Mira turned the tide. Soldiers who had been unsure now fought with courage. Civilians were protected, and the wounded were moved to safety. Lyra saw the human block attacks, guide soldiers, and protect the weak without pause. His courage was unwavering and his focus absolute. She realized that he had become not only a warrior, but a leader, a steady hand that kept the kingdom together in its darkest hour. Mira roared in victory from above, her fire lighting the sky as the enemy retreated. The princess felt relief and pride swell within her. The dark ships retreated beyond the horizon, and the void beasts fell back with them. The palace grounds were scarred, and the towers damaged, but the kingdom had survived. Lyra walked through the city with Ryan and Mira, checking on soldiers and civilians. She spoke quietly with the human warrior, thanking him for his courage and wisdom. He nodded simply, showing no pride, only calm resolve. Lyra felt a deep respect and admiration for the human who had once been the target of her mockery. Mira flew above them, her wings glowing softly in the light of the three suns. The citizens of the kingdom cheered as they saw their leaders and the human warrior who had saved them. Lyra understood that courage and trust had saved her people more than magic or titles ever could. In the days that followed, the palace began to repair, and the kingdom healed. Lyra, Ryan, and Mira worked together to strengthen defenses and train soldiers. The human warrior continued to move quietly among the people, offering guidance, protecting the weak, and inspiring confidence. The princess had learned to rely not only on her magic, but also on the courage of another. Mira flew high above the city, a loyal companion to both the princess and the human warrior. The bond between them grew unbreakable, formed in the fires of battle and tempered by trust and respect. The kingdom prospered, and peace returned. But Lyra never forgot the lessons of the final battle. She had once mocked the human warrior, and yet he had become her anchor, her strength, and her equal. Mira remained at her side, ever watchful, and Ryan remained quietly steadfast. Together, the three of them became a symbol of courage and hope for the kingdom and for all who looked to the skies and dreamed of safety and strength. The princess, the dragon, and the human warrior had faced darkness and survived, and in doing so, they had forged a bond that would endure for all the years to come. The next day, the sky over the palace glowed with the light of 3 suns. Lyra walked through the halls, with Mira flying close above her head. The palace was quiet but tense after the last battle. Guards moved carefully along the corridors, repairing broken defenses and tending to the wounded. Lyra felt the weight of leadership heavily on her shoulders. She knew the enemy was still near, and the kingdom could not rest. The human warrior Ryan stood in the courtyard, observing the preparations. He moved with calm focus, guiding soldiers in repairing walls and organizing supplies. His presence was steady and reassuring even to those who had lost hope. Lyra watched him from a balcony and felt a strange mix of admiration and gratitude. She had mocked him when he first arrived, but now she could see his true strength. Reports came quickly that a massive void beast had been sighted near the eastern gate. It was larger and stronger than the one they had fought before. Lyra gathered her advisors, but they could offer little guidance. Fear spread among the guards. Many were unwilling to face the new threat. Lyra felt a surge of determination. She could not allow fear to rule the kingdom. Mira flew above, sensing the danger and ready to fight. Lyra turned to Ryan, who had already gathered a small group of soldiers to hold the line. He looked at her with calm eyes and nodded once. She understood without words. They would face this danger together. The void beast landed with force that shook the palace grounds. Guards fled in panic. Lyra froze for a moment, but then moved forward with her magic to protect civilians. Mira flew close to the beast, breathing fire to distract it. Ryan ran toward the creature, without hesitation. His sword was simple, but his actions were precise. He blocked attacks from the beast and guided fleeing soldiers to safety. Lyra joined him, casting shields and controlling small bursts of energy to keep the enemy at bay. She realized that the human's courage was stronger than any spell or title. His focus and calm inspired those around him to stand and fight. The battle raged through the palace grounds. The void beast destroyed walls and towers, but Lyra, Ryan, and Mira worked together to protect the innocent. Guards who had fled returned to follow Ryan's lead. Civilians found safety under Lyra's magic and Ryan's guidance. Mira flew above, her fire lighting the path and giving hope to all below. The human moved with steady precision, striking only when necessary and guiding others with quiet words. Lyra watched him and felt her admiration grow. She had never seen someone face danger so calmly and yet so effectively. The princess realized that the bond between them was becoming stronger and more important than she had imagined. As the sun climbed higher, the void beast was still strong, but the defenders of the palace had gained courage. Ryan moved through the battlefield, protecting the weak and leading soldiers to take strategic positions. Lyra used her magic to control the flow of battle, shielding civilians and reinforcing the defenses. Mira continued to fly above, striking the beast when needed and guiding allies with her glowing wings. The princess felt a strange warmth as she saw the human's bravery and wisdom in action. He did not boast or shout, but his presence alone brought order to the chaos. The battle continued for hours. Lyra and Ryan worked side by side, their movements in perfect rhythm, despite never having trained together. Guards who had faltered found strength in Ryan's calm and clear instructions. Civilians who had panicked moved safely under their guidance. Mira circled above, her fire a bright mark against the dark sky. Lyra realized that courage could take many forms. The human warrior, who had once been the target of her scorn, now inspired hope and strength that even magic could not create alone. As the sun began to set, the void beast retreated, moving back to the dark ships hovering above. The palace grounds were scarred, but the kingdom had survived the attack. Lyra, Ryan, and Mira moved through the city, checking defenses and aiding the injured. Lyra spoke quietly to Ryan about plans and strategy. He responded with calm advice, showing no fear. The princess felt a deep respect for the human who had faced danger without hesitation and without pride. Mira flew above, wings glowing in the fading light, a symbol of hope for the citizens below. Lyra understood that the kingdom could survive anything with courage, unity, and trust. The human warrior who had once been mocked had become the foundation of their strength. The morning light touched the crystal towers as the aftermath of the first attack became clear. The palace grounds were filled with broken walls and scattered debris. Lyra moved carefully along the paths with Mira flying just above her head, wings casting soft shadows on the shattered floors. Her heart was heavy for the loss of life and the destruction around her. The human warrior Ryan followed quietly, moving with steady focus among the injured. He helped carry wounded soldiers and civilians to safe places, his calm presence a balm in the chaos. Lyra watched him closely, noticing how he did not falter or hesitate even when the danger was near. Mira hissed softly, as if sensing Lyra's concern, urging her to act with caution and clarity. Reports came of more dark ships approaching from the outer void. The palace guards tried to organize a defense, but fear ran through their ranks. Many who had once been proud now trembled. Lyra felt the weight of leadership pressing on her shoulders. She saw that she could not rely on fear or threats to hold her people together. She needed more than power, she needed courage that inspired others. Ryan moved beside her, directing the guards and giving orders in his calm voice. He had no title or magic, but his words carried weight. Soldiers obeyed him because he was steady and clear, not because they feared him. Lyra felt a quiet admiration and an unfamiliar relief. This human who she had mocked now gave hope where her magic and pride had only given rules. The first wave of the new attack struck with sudden intensity. Dark ships unleashed beams that tore through walls and scattered defenders. The ground shook, and fires burned in the courtyards. Mira flew above, spitting fire to protect fleeing civilians and distract the enemy. Lyra moved with her magic to shield those nearby, her mind sharp and focused on survival. Ryan moved calmly through the chaos, saving those trapped and giving guidance. Lyra saw him lift a small child from the path of fire and carry the boy to safety. The child clung to Ryan and did not cry, trusting him completely. Lyra felt a sting of shame and awe. She had mocked this human for weakness, and yet he showed more strength in his actions than any soldier in her kingdom. The enemy advanced closer to the royal gate. Lyra's guards were disorganized, and many had fled. Panic spread like wildfire. Mira roared from above, her small body glowing with power. Lyra ran forward with a shield of magic, guiding her people and trying to block the enemy. Ryan moved beside her with quiet determination. He did not shout or demand respect. He simply acted, placing himself between danger and the weak, using his sword when needed, and his voice when guidance was required. Lyra realized that his courage was different from her own. She had always relied on magic and skill. Ryan relied on heart and focus. This combination was powerful. A massive void beast appeared near the gate, landing with force that shook the palace grounds. Guards fled in fear. Lyra froze briefly. The first time in her life she felt real doubt. Mira circled the creature, hissing and spitting fire, but it was too large and too strong. Ryan ran forward past the fleeing soldiers, his sword simple, but his will unbroken. Lyra followed, using her magic to support him and protect the injured. The princess felt her chest tighten as she saw the human face the beast with courage unmatched. He moved with careful precision, striking when needed, protecting when necessary, and never faltering. Mira joined the fight from above, her fire a bright mark against the dark sky. The battle stretched across the palace grounds, the enemy pressing relentlessly. Lyra and Ryan worked side by side, their movements in rhythm, despite never having trained together. Guards who had fled returned to follow Ryan's lead. The combination of human courage and princess magic turned the tide in small ways. Lyra saw soldiers stand firm who would have run before. Civilians found hope and moved to safe zones, guided by the quiet warrior and the princess. Mira flew across the battlefield, her wings bright and protective. The dark ships above seemed to hesitate at the unexpected resistance. Lyra realized that she had underestimated the value of simple courage and steady action. Even as the sun set, the battle did not end. Fires burned, and smoke filled the air. Lyra and Ryan continued to direct the defense, moving among soldiers, civilians, and wounded. Mira returned often to the princess, hissing softly, but always returning to fight. Lyra felt respect growing for the human, in a way she had never felt for anyone else. She understood now that power was not always measured in magic or titles. Sometimes it was measured in patience, courage, and the quiet strength to stand when others ran. Ryan did not speak much, but every action he took inspired others. Lyra felt that for the first time, she had a true equal, someone whose heart and will were as strong as her magic and pride. As night deepened, the palace grounds settled into tense silence. The dark ships hovered above, wary now of the resistance. Lyra, Ryan, and Mira moved through the city, checking the defenses and attending to the injured. Lyra spoke softly to Ryan about the strategy and the next steps. He replied with calm guidance, clear and simple, showing no fear. The princess realized that his strength lay in his steadiness, in the way he could calm panic and bring order with nothing but his presence. Mira flew above them, wings glowing in the night sky, a symbol of hope for the citizens below. Lyra knew that together they could face the darkness. The human warrior who had once been her target of mockery had become her anchor, a force she could rely on when all else seemed lost. The next morning, the sky over the Crystal Kingdom was bright with the colors of 3 suns. Lyra walked along the palace terraces, with Mira flying beside her. The air was calm, but a strange tension moved through the kingdom. Guards whispered about unknown ships in distant space, and the advisors were uneasy. Lyra had never felt fear, but even she sensed the unease in the air. The human warrior Ryan stood in the courtyard ready to assist wherever he was needed. He moved with steady focus, observing the training of the guards and the patrols along the palace walls. His calm presence was different from the usual confidence of the palace soldiers. Lyra watched him and felt again the pull of curiosity. The human who had once been mocked now seemed to carry a strength that filled the space around him. Reports came quickly that dark ships were approaching from the outer void. They moved silently but fast, a shadow over the kingdom. Lyra gathered her advisors, but they could not provide certainty. The strange fleet was unlike anything known to the kingdom. Lyra's voice was firm, but her mind raced. Mira flew above the hall and hissed, softly sensing danger. Lyra placed a hand on the dragon's head and felt the tremor of worry in the small creature. The princess realized that this threat could not be ignored and that the human might be the key to understanding how to face it. When the first scouts returned, they reported that the ships were larger and more numerous than expected. The palace guards became tense, and some began to falter in their ranks. Panic was not common in the kingdom, but the unknown frightened even the bravest. Lyra's mind moved quickly. She saw her guards hesitate, and her advisors argue over minor details. Ryan stood in the center of the hall, silently watching the screens of incoming ships. His gaze was calm and steady, showing no fear even as the numbers grew. Lyra felt a strange hope in that quiet strength. Mira roared in warning and flew to the gates to warn the outer guards. The dragon's fire lit the horizon with soft green flames. As the first attack arrived, the lower towers shook and alarms rang across the palace. Lyra moved quickly, sending instructions with precise gestures and clear voice. Many guards fled or hid. Some of the best warriors could not stand the fear. Ryan moved among the panicked soldiers, guiding them with clear orders. He lifted injured elves from the path and placed them in safe areas. Lyra watched him with awe. He did not use magic and he carried no great title, but his actions saved lives faster than any spell could. Mira circled the battlefield above, spitting fire to guide soldiers and distract enemies. The princess realized that strength came in many forms, and that the human showed a type she had not known before. The enemy ships fired beams that shattered walls and sent debris into the air. Lyra stood on the highest terrace, watching as chaos spread across the palace grounds. She felt anger at the invaders and worry for her people. Mira flew close and whispered in her mind, urging courage. Lyra took a deep breath and turned to the human. Ryan nodded once, silently asking for trust. She realized that the human had become more than an ally. He had become a guide in the storm. She moved down to join him on the palace grounds. Together they directed guards and civilians, creating order out of chaos. As the battle continued, a dark void ship landed near the eastern tower. The ground shook, and the air filled with fire and smoke. Many guards ran, but Ryan did not move from his position. Lyra felt a surge of admiration mixed with shame. She had mocked this human for weakness, and yet he faced the danger with steady courage. Mira roared and flew toward the ship, fire lighting the path. Lyra followed, using her magic to shield civilians and guide soldiers. The human moved beside her, simple sword in hand, protecting those who could not fight. The princess realized that his power was not in spells or titles but in courage and focus. This made her heart ache with a strange feeling she could not name. Night fell, and the battle slowed, but the enemy did not retreat. The palace grounds were scarred and many towers were damaged. Lyra stood with Ryan and Mira on a hill overlooking the city. They watched the dark ships hover above. Lyra spoke quietly about strategy and the protection of her people. Ryan responded with calm advice, his words clear and simple. The princess had never felt such clarity in the midst of fear. Mira flapped her wings and hissed softly at the dark horizon. But the human remained calm. Lyra realized that she could trust him completely. She felt the pride she had always carried shift into respect and something softer, a feeling she had never admitted even to herself. Through the long night, they worked side by side. Guards who had faltered found courage in the human's presence. Soldiers followed his movements, and civilians trusted his guidance. Lyra moved through the city, her magic shielding and guiding, while Ryan moved silently beside her, saving lives and giving strength. Mira circled above with glowing wings, a beacon of hope. The princess understood that the future of her kingdom and the survival of her people depended on this human warrior. She also realized that her mockery had been replaced with a deep and unspoken admiration. The quiet human who had once been her target of scorn had become the center of her hope. In a distant star kingdom, a princess named Lyra walked through tall crystal halls with quiet pride. She moved as if the whole palace belonged to her, and her gaze was cold and sharp. Her small dragon Mira sat on her shoulder and watched everything with bright eyes that shone with a curious fire. Mira had scales that glimmered with soft green and gold, and her wings were folded neatly across her back. Lyra spoke little to anyone, and few dared to approach her without fear of her sharp tongue. Many in the kingdom whispered about her power and her skill with magic, but they also feared her pride and the way she could mock anyone who failed her. The palace had high towers that reflected the light of 3 suns and deep halls that held the songs of generations. Lyra liked to move among the halls alone, letting her dragon fly ahead and guide her through the corridors. She often looked down at the guards and servants who bowed in silence, and she smiled in a way that was both cold and amused. To her, the humans were weak and slow, She had seen them only in stories and paintings. She had never met one in person, until the day a human warrior arrived at her gates. The human's name was Ryan, and he carried himself with quiet strength and a calm mind that made him seem taller than he really was. Ryan had come from a distant planet, as part of a peace mission sent by his people. He was trained in combat, but he did not boast or shout. He had simple clothes with marks of travel and small scars that told stories of survival. When he first entered the crystal hall, he bowed low, but his eyes never wavered from the princess. Lyra looked at him with curiosity and surprise. No human had ever dared to stand with such courage in her presence before. She stepped closer and smiled with a touch of mockery in her eyes. She asked why a human dared to enter a place of power without fear or hesitation. She said that humans were weak and that he should return to his home. Ryan did not speak. He only turned his gaze downward and then stepped aside, letting her words fall like dust around him. His silence was a quiet statement, louder than any shout could have been. Lyra watched him with a mix of confusion and interest. She had mocked many warriors before and watched them fight for pride or honor, but this human did not respond with anger or fear. He simply stood there in stillness and dignity. Mira hissed softly from the princess's shoulder, as if sensing the unusual calm in the human. Lyra moved back and let her eyes linger on him. She felt a strange pull that she could not name. Something about his silence made her wonder, and made her heart beat faster than she liked to admit. She had never felt the need to look twice at any human before. The sky outside was a swirl of stars and colors as the sun set behind distant mountains of crystal and metal. Lyra stepped to a window and looked at the stars with her hands folded. Mira perched on her shoulder and peered over the edge, wings fluttering slightly. The dragon was small but fierce, and fiercely loyal to the princess. Lyra knew she could trust her dragon more than any guard in the palace. The small creature hissed softly, and the princess felt comforted by the warmth of the dragon's body. She turned back to the hall where the human stood, and felt a quiet tension in her chest. Something about this human was different from all the others she had mocked or commanded before. The palace bell rang, signaling the evening meal. Lyra walked with her long steps toward the dining hall. Guards and servants moved quickly to open doors and clear paths. Ryan followed silently, keeping a respectful distance. Lyra noticed how careful he was, not to step on the patterned floors or knock over anything. She admired this silent caution even as she continued to pretend indifference. Mira flew ahead, small wings moving quickly through the hall, landing near the human and tilting her head as if to judge him. Ryan bent slightly to meet the dragon's gaze, his eyes kind and calm. Mira sniffed at him and then let out a small, approving chirp. Lyra's lips curved slightly. She had never heard her dragon approve of any outsider before. At the table, Lyra sat at the head with Ryan across from her. The meal was quiet, with only the soft clinking of plates and the distant hum of the palace's energy fields. Lyra studied him as he ate. He used his hands with care, slow movements that showed patience and focus. He did not rush and he did not look away. Lyra felt a strange admiration growing inside her. It was not fear or anger, but something deeper and quieter. She did not understand it, and she was not sure she wanted to admit it even to herself. Mira curled her small body around her neck and whispered softly in her mind, sensing the quiet changes in her feelings. After the meal, Lyra moved to a balcony overlooking the crystal gardens. The 3 suns had set, and stars sparkled across the dark sky. Ryan followed silently, Mira flying ahead to scout the open space. Lyra spoke to him then, her voice softer than before, asking why he came so far to meet her. She expected a weak answer, full of excuses or flattery. Instead, Ryan spoke with calm honesty. He said his people wished for peace and friendship. He said he came because he saw the need for understanding between worlds. Lyra listened, feeling the warmth of truth in his words. She had mocked humans for pride and weakness. But this human showed a quiet strength she had never seen. Her mind raced with thoughts she did not yet fully understand. As night deepened, the palace lights glimmered like distant stars among the crystals. Lyra turned back into the hall with Ryan following. Mira flew above them, wings glowing faintly in the dim light. The princess felt a strange connection forming. A silent promise of change that she did not yet name. She knew this was only the beginning of something larger than herself, and larger than the human she had mocked. And somewhere deep inside her, she understood that the human warrior who had once been her target of mockery might soon become her most trusted ally.